is Władysława Kухtu, looking to become the 4th successive Kazakh gold medalist on the night. Guess what? She's a southpaw. She only turned 21 just a couple of weeks ago as well. No surprise, she's the national champion.
Sitora Turdibekova.
And up against her from Uzbekistan, we've got another Kazakh-Uzbek matchup here, is Sitora Turdibekova, who likewise only 10 days ago turned 20. They share birthdays, the pair of them, separated only by a couple of weeks and only separated by a couple of years as well. So I think the latest young talents off the production lines from both their respective countries, with such prestige and pedigree in these events, and I'm really looking forward to this one.
I saw Turdibekova in the World Youth Championships recently. She got a bronze medal. She lost in the semi-finals to Poonam of India, one of the 7 Indian fighters who went on to win gold. And Poonam, a difficult fighter to deal with, along the same lines as Joloman, who we've just seen, a physical fighter, a come-forward fighter who sets a very hot kind of relentless pace, and Turdibekova just struggled to get to grips with that within that 3-round format, exactly the kind of formula we were just referring to there. So I think this is going to be an interesting kind of fight.
Certainly Kukta's had the easier passage through. She's had relatively comfortable scorelines in her 2 victories so far, and it was a clean sweep on the cards for Turdibekova in the semi-finals as well. Intriguing matchup, this one. Kukta in the red, Turdibekova in the blue. A sharp 1-2 there from Turdibekova, and quickly out of range almost immediately too. You always think with that relatively good recent experience for Turdibekova, it's not that long ago, that youth championships, Andy, you know, you were out there, those competitions where there's bouts in a relatively short space of time, you're on weight from day to day as well. It can take a lot out of fighters. Sometimes being busy, though, it can be a real bonus. It can be a real asset when you come to the next competition.
Absolutely. Throughout the course of that 2 weeks in Kielce in Poland, you could see fighters really grow into the tournament. You'd see them backstage sometimes. They'd come to watch teammates. They weren't boxing themselves. They're just having a bit of a workout. Maybe got the sweatsuit on, just as you say, keeping that weight under control. And it's just invaluable experience, really. They're all such young athletes when you go to those World Juniors or World Youths. But the interesting thing about this, as you said, there's not that much age separates these two, so in terms of experience there isn't all that much between them, really.
Like the way that Kukta's going about this now, she's starting to get a rhythm. That southpaw jab is really starting to work well, and she's sort of jab, back out, half a step out of range, then back with the counters. Really starting to warm up, Kukta, who's also managed to bag herself a junior world bronze 6 years ago as well, so she shares the same kind of medal as Turdibekova has managed to garner recently. That's a nice 1-2 there from Turdibekova as well. So this is an interesting match, I think, through the first couple of minutes.
She just kind of looks like the boss in there, Kukta, as well, doesn't she? On the front foot, manoeuvring Turdibekova around the ring, getting her into the kind of positions that she wants her to be, and that's what it looks like, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does look exactly like that, Andy. It is quite clever pressure. It's you know, you compare it to the previous fight with Joloman, who, you know, has changed her play in the second round, but it was very much a harried, hassling pressure. This is quite an intelligent, patient pressure from Kukta. And there gets through the left hand once again. So it's been a good start from her. You just wonder, you know, the pressure's not always physical as well. It's when you're under that kind of momentum, that kind of calculating pressure, I think it starts to impose a a mental toll as well. And certainly Turdibekova was asked a few questions there in the first round.
She needs to try and disrupt that rhythm, doesn't she? She did that in the final 20, 30 seconds there, just managed to get her feet in nice and quickly through a crisp combination, got through with a couple, and then either grab hold or just look to get back out again. That's a lovely bit of work there, just throws the jab, pulls back, avoids the right hand, throws another jab. It's not real heavy punching she's looking to do here, the Kazakh. Just trying to hit the target. That's still the major difference between top-level amateur boxing and professional fighting. You can win the fight by hitting the target. In AIBA boxing, you don't necessarily have to hurt your opponent to win it. Pro boxing is different. That is, as people often describe it, the hurt business. But increasingly in recent years, of course, you do see fighters looking to punch through that target more, don't you?
Shot 1-2 there from Kukta at the start of the round, but there was a retaliation, really sharp punches. Sometimes when we're up close like that, it's not always easy to see exactly who's landing and where. No doubt Turdibekova enjoyed some success in those opening sequences. Oh, nice right hand as well, once again from Turdibekova. And I just wondered the kind of pressure that, the very subtle, intelligent pressure that Kukta was applying in that first round. I just wondered at the end of it, it did look like maybe Turdibekova was just becoming a little frayed around the edges physically. And I wondered if we were going to see a continuation of that into the second round. Actually, Turdibekova's managed to gather herself and get back on her boxing.
It's almost like watching two fighters fight at different speeds in this kind of fight, though, isn't it? Because Kukta, as you said, is nice and balanced, is nice and measured. That front foot always just taking that space. Turdibekova's been made to work hard here. She's got that kind of air of a fighter who's having to work hard to keep Kukta off her. But in a three-round fight, you can win the fight in that kind of mode.
I'll tell you what, with the shape of Kukta, a couple of nice shots landed there from both boxers. But I bet you Kukta, in terms of her shape and style, I bet you she's the kind of boxer that the coach will occasionally haul over to show another young would-be star of the future. Right, look at this guard, look at this technique. This is exactly how you go about it. Her shape and technique is excellent. Just been a bit more scrappy, I think, in this round. Not as clear-cut the moments for either boxer. But her left hand, Kukta, is absolutely perfectly delivered. And when she does measure it, it is usually with little drawback, little tell, and little movement back out of the space as well. Technically very sound. I suppose the big question here is Andy, if you were in the corner of, and this is a tight round, so I wouldn't like to say how this has gone either way. And there you go, a couple of shots left and a right at the end of it. Eye-catching ones for Turdibekova as they touch gloves at the end of it, a real mark of respect, as you'd expect in this great sport. That little salvo at the end for Turdibekova, give her a shout on the card. So that was a tough round to score.
That could have been enough. That combination at the end there from Turdibekova could have been enough just to see her nick this. As I said, kind of midway through the round, when you look at what's happening in there, what you see is Kukta manoeuvring her opponent around, making the running. She's the one taking the centre of the ring. She's the one who looks to be capable of providing a threat, a latent threat almost at all times. But Turdibekova, although she does look slightly more, desperate's not quite the right word, but you know what I'm getting at. She looks slightly more on the back foot and looking for ideas. She did land some decent punches in that second round, so maybe the red corner are going to are going to tell Kukta, or will have told her between rounds, that you need to get out there and let your hands go more and make sure you win this round.
You fancy this is crucial, this third round, and into it we go. I think exactly that. Turdibekova has been perhaps reactive throughout, and maybe that's the best way to describe it. And also we're talking, Andy, about how you score a fight, the things you're looking for, ring generalship and the flow of play, the pattern of the fight. That is often something that has to come into it as well. And you'd have to say that although Turdibekova comes back with a couple of shots of her own there, you'd have to say on balance that the pattern of the fight is being dictated by Kukta throughout.
You would. The 5 judges at ringside will be looking first and foremost, though, for scoring punches. Punches landed with a knuckle part of the glove to the torso, to the head. Turdibekova gets in close there, lets her hands go. And a couple there, I think, maybe 3 did get through. That's why I think she just needs to just do a little bit more in this final round, Kukta. Maybe let her hands go a little bit more. She dips ahead and walks straight onto right hand there, though, and with just over, heading up towards a midway point of this third and final round. Again, there's not a great deal in this one. If anything, I think the fighter in blue is probably nicking this one so far, although there's a long way to go.
Yeah, I think she's done well. End of the second round, start of this third, through the first minute and a half is Turdibekova, who seems to be landing those shots, particularly when they both miss and come in close. It does look as though Turdibekova is getting the right hand off particularly, and has landed a few of those shots. And despite the fact that she has been dictating the play, Kukta, she's not quite been able to do it as successfully or noticeably as she did perhaps through the first round particularly.
Just snapped off a 1-2 there, Kukta. Held her feet a little bit, and a right hand came back in from Turdibekova. The referee just having a word with the fighter in red there about the heads coming together.
Footwork's been better from Turdibekova in this third round, hasn't it? She just managed to judge the distance, get a bit more rhythm in her own work, which is, I think, the word that Andy was using for Cook in the first round. I think it's been a good response, this, from Turdibekova. To that first round, it looked like she really had to do something. Second was close, not easy to judge. There's eye-catching shots right at the end of it, just before the bell. And she landed quite a few shots, particularly the short right hand at the start, through the first minute of this third round as well. So there goes the final bell. Turdibekova, thanks to her rally, particularly through the second half of the second round and through this third, has given herself a shout.
Absolutely, they're pretty happy in that Uzbek corner as well, as she went back into it there, because I think they feel that she did the stronger work in that third and final round, and I would probably agree with them. You talked about distance there, and that's always key, isn't it, in all fights. You could argue that boxing is all about distance, really, and there was a right hand there, just as you were talking about it. She came in from out of range, landed a right hand, grabbed hold, and just an example of the kind of adjustments that possibly she managed to make quite effectively heading through that fight. So this is right in the balance, this one, I would say.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner by unanimous decision in the blue corner representing
She's done it. Sitora Turdibekova, the third finalist tonight from Uzbekistan. She becomes the first gold medalist for them, and tight on one of the scorecards, pretty comfortable by 3 points on 4 of the other scorecards. So there wasn't much of a worry in the end. I really like the way she found a way, Andy, through the second and third rounds particularly. That was a terrific response. They say that of any would-be champion or champion, is finding a way, finding an answer, and she did that tonight.
She did. 4 of the judges giving it 3 rounds to nil there. I think we were looking at that as more of a 2-1 fight, maybe the Kazakh taking the first round and then Turdibekova coming back and taking rounds 2 and 3, although there was very little in round 2. I think what you might say to Kukta, what the coaching team might say to Kukta off the back of that, is that in a 3-round fight, she's probably got to up that punch output. As you said, the feet are great, the technique is good, her balance is good, she holds her boxing together really, really well in every facet, but she just didn't really throw enough. Turdibekova upped that in rounds 2 and 3, and that's what won her the fight, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. What Kukta has is